Minutes past 8 this morning, not to give you the head start, it's 20 minutes past 8 this morning. Joseph Conroy is with us for this week's edition of Have You Seen? Joseph, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Jerry. How you getting on?
Yeah, very good. This week we're looking at Sir Alex Ferguson. Alex Ferguson, Never Give In.
Never give in. Probably start with at the top here. Have you guys actually seen this? And on paper, what are your kind of interest levels in a feature-length Amazon Prime Alex Ferguson documentary?
I have seen the first hour of it, and it took me about a year of having Amazon to go, I'll watch this. I probably will watch this. And then I got into it and I was like, this is really good for what it is. There's like an opening bit where I found out stuff that I didn't really know. I didn't know anything really about his time at Rangers and how horrific his takeaways from that period were and how formative they were. And also I knew nothing about his relationship with the brother and why two of them basically travelled the world, because his brother ends up as a chief scout and chief consigliere, or certainly an important consigliere in the during the Man United period too. So the bit where he fell out with his dad about football and then makes up with him because he scores a hat-trick is like, okay, this is I begin to learn a lot about the man right here.
Yeah, after about 7 or 8 months of not speaking to his dad, he scores a hat-trick against Rangers. His dad comes up to him and goes, "Put it there, atta boy, that's my boy. I knew you had it in you." And it's all fixed. But yeah, that is kind of a good starting off point into the weird sort of the strange psychology of Alex Ferguson and the Fergusons. But yeah, like you said, I kind of approached this a bit kind of not super enthusiastic about it. Like, I only watched it this week. Again, haven't had it there available to me for a year, sitting on Amazon Prime, waiting for you to watch. But I don't know, it just kind of had never felt like the right moment. But then once I did sit down, there is great stuff in it, especially kind of like the kind of hook is this is his first major kind of documentation and comment on his recovery from his brain hemorrhage, and he kind of gets some new detail on that. Like, just one point where a doctor's saying at one point his survival chances were 80-20, 20% chance of survival. So that's all really interesting. And like you said, the kind of formative years, the Rangers stuff, the Aberdeen stuff, we kind of get this stark cut off at the treble, and that's all done really well. But also, kind of, I don't know, the treble cutoff left me feeling a bit unfulfilled, which is maybe a little bit unfair. Like, we're kind of, this is very good for what it is. We might talk a little bit about what it isn't and a bit of the context around it.
Is there any possibility there's a second part coming where the juicy stuff gets released perhaps after his death? I don't know. Or is it like the type of thing that you can say in your 80s now? It's like, well, never really liked the Glazers. Yeah, shouldn't have fallen out with the Irish lads, especially Roy. Of all, I really love Ireland, but I just seem to have a problem with the big personalities from there. That's why I found my relationship with Mick McCarthy was always pretty straightforward.
It's hard to know. Maybe there are meetings going on where it's like, all right, we've kind of done the formative years, we've done the win the treble. What's in part two, guys? I'm not sure how enthusiastic they'd be. Well, actually, you're actually, in fairness, he's left like a Champions League and like God knows how many Premier Leagues on the cutting floor there. So I don't know, maybe there will be a part two. But if I was kind of pitching my fantasy Ferguson documentary, it would kind of follow an arc of Rock of Gibraltar, breaking up with Roy Keane, the Glazer takeover, life under the Glazers when he wins 5 titles, a Champions League, gets 2 Champions League finals, and then kind of the kind of whole question around succession planning and sort of the fall of the club after he leaves. Like, I think that'd be a pretty interesting documentary.
The Rock of Gibraltar element of it is always quite a contradiction in itself, because Ferguson has always said that one of the reasons why he's interested in horse racing is because it takes him away from football, and that nobody bothers you. Everybody asks you who's going to win the half three, rather than how are Manchester United going. Of course, if you were watching Punchestown on RTE a couple of weeks ago, he got pulled aside for an interview and was like, how will the new manager do it at Manchester United? So it's possibly not always the case, but I wonder, I mean, did he kind of realise the irony of it all, where later on his involvement in a horse essentially had a massive knock-on impact on the course of Manchester United, or so it seemed from the outside anyway, that I guess the current predicament of Manchester United and the current hatred that a lot of United fans have for their owners can be traced back to Alex Ferguson's involvement in in a horse. It may be too simplistic to put it like that, but it definitely seems that there was a huge part to play.
Yeah, because just kind of relitigate it slightly, he's involved with Rock of Gibraltar, he's getting a share of the prize money. When it comes to the...
Just explain that, because for people who are kind of like, what are you talking about? Rock of Gibraltar is a horse.
Yeah, and he seems to have had this agreement where he was getting part of the prize money, but then when it came to the prize money was kind of a few £1 million. Then when it came to the...
Rock of Gibraltar is a horse, and it's owned by Coolmore, and Ferguson is mates with them. They go racing, they're friends, they hang out. High achievers, at the very highest level of business and sport. It looked like this intoxicating mix of, a Mount Rushmore style night out would be with
McManus, Magnier, Ferguson,
and whoever else. Like maybe Aidan O'Brien gets into that group,
possibly,
but he might not. The three lads are older, they're kind of similar vintage, they have similar levels of respect for each other, and they're like, here, we'll give you a horse. This one, it should be good, not great. And then it turns out Rock of Gibraltar is astonishingly good, like astonishingly good as a horse, right? But the deal is that we know publicly Ferguson's the owner of the horse, and so if you own a horse, you automatically feel like you have the breeding rights to the horse. You said a very important thing there, Joseph. The prize money, it was a share of the prize money that he was getting. Ferguson thought that he was getting a share of the horse, not the prize money. Not like a... So if we, for example, were to own a horse as off the ball, we wouldn't get the breeding rights to the horse. We'd get a little bit of share of the prize money. We'd give it to charity. That would be how that would work, right? There was no sense that this was like you'll be the front for this. It'll be a marketing tool for Coolmore, and you'll give the money to charity. It's like, this is a good opportunity for us all to do a bit of business together. Rising tide lifts all boats, to the point where... And the breeding rights for some horses, like Sadler's Wells could have made 250 million at stud over his life, or more. So you're talking about... Bear in mind, Ferguson wasn't the highest paid employee at Manchester United. His players were earning significantly more than him at this point. He was not a wealthy man by the standards of Jose Mourinho or the Atletico Madrid manager now or Pep Guardiola. He was not getting paid that level of money. He wasn't getting paid the same money as Eric Cantona, I don't think, when Cantona was at the club. So the lads come, billionaires, or very rich anyway, and are like, you can have this horse. And he's like, wow. But then obviously there was some dispute about whether or not the breeding rights were going to be included. So that's where we picked the story up, Joe.
Yeah, and you're talking about the figure that's kind of always quoted is a potential £200 million on the table, and a potential half of that obviously is 100 million. So that all gets nasty. There's a great quote here from Keane's second book, just giving his sympathetic take on the whole controversy. This is him on Ferguson. He was just a mascot for them, walking around with the Rock of Gibraltar. Hey, look at me, how big I am. I didn't even own the bloody thing. This kind of leads to this rift. This work kind of just something we haven't pointed out here is the two Irish guys here own kind of between 25 and 30% of Manchester United. So that's kind of where things get interesting. And also kind of say that the popular narrative is that the Rock of Gibraltar split creates a rift between the Irish bloc and Man United, and they eventually sell off their shares to the Glazers. I was a bit like, is that an oversimplification? Where the Glazers kind of coming in the back door, they're already buying up shares anyway. But the more you look at it, the more that this argument either accelerated or caused or created the opportunity for the Glazers to get in. But so during that rift, the Irish guys go off. They hire a firm to come in and kind of do some sort of forensic style accounting over United's numbers. And they come back to the United board. So this is a major shareholder coming back with a dossier with 99 questions that they want answered by the club. So this is kind of where we get the link into the documentary, because this documentary is a Jason Ferguson production directed by Jason Ferguson, who is the son of Alex Ferguson, who at that time had kind of left behind a career in TV production to become a football agent. So you've got him working as an agent. His dad's the manager of Man United. Major shareholders coming in with these 99 questions about the club's transfer dealings. I'm just going to refer here to a piece by Matt Slater in The Athletic, just on some of the details of those 99 questions. So they centered on whether allegations that Ferguson had let his son become the club's in fact agent, and United had been overpaying for players. The board then promised an internal review. The results of that review were never published, and Jason Ferguson wasn't found guilty of any wrongdoing. What did happen was the BBC picked up the story, put out this kind of eccentric documentary called Ferguson and Sons, where it's kind of like Dispatches but made for Generation X, with kind of Stone Roses style beats playing under everything. And like, while they were getting stories about Jason Ferguson, they have an actor with like a massive foam head and like a Nokia up to his ear walking around outside Manchester United, making all these deals. So that's actually what leads to the 7 years between Ferguson and the BBC. After that documentary, Ferguson speaks to the BBC for almost 8 years. But the eventual fallout of that was right before that documentary aired, United come out and say they never published the full details of the report, but they said that they would not be doing future dealings with Jason Ferguson, and that firm was wound down. United did actually deal with him again down the line, because after Ferguson retired, Jason Ferguson, his director-producer, also becomes his agent and kind of works on deals between him and the club. So just kind of when you're watching a documentary like this, which we're saying is great for what it is, it's also kind of great for what it isn't as well, when you look at the full context of sort of who's crafting this and who's putting it together. And even there was an interesting interview with Jason where he was saying kind of on the first day of filming, he was ready to sort of map things out and say, all right, Dad, we're doing this. He turns on the camera and he says Alex just starts speaking for 20 minutes straight, uninterrupted monologue on his childhood. So there's a lot of interesting power dynamics going on here. And also I think the documentary is actually more interesting when you take into account who's telling the story and how the story is being told.
This is like a mini Succession, isn't it? Where like who actually made this documentary? You know, who is the person with the power when it looks like the children are making this documentary. Actually, it's the elder statesman of the family really who's calling the shots on this. And it's not very surprising.
Yeah, it's definitely like he's got to be happy with the end product. He's absolutely got to be happy with the end product. And like, look, it's very difficult to do full justice to Ferguson. Like, what a titanic character, and what a massively flawed character, and what a genius at the same time. So how do you like, this is his side, this is his
last dance.
Yeah, except it's too short, do you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think if he'd gone full Last Dance, it would have been amazing, because they could have had Keane. They could have just used the clips of Keane at the Cadbury's Roadshow in the Bord Gosh saying stuff, and they could have shown him that, and he could have been, nah, it's just bollocks. Nah. That would have been amazing. And I think they did miss a trick with that stuff, definitely. And I think they missed a trick with the Rock of Gibraltar stuff as well, because like he's talked about, that did not distract me at all. Just to put a little bit of context on Rock of Gibraltar, right? I'm on his page on the Coolmore Stud. It's only $5,000 to get a cover now. It should be 50, 100, maybe 250 if he was an absolute superstar stallion. But a dual Group 1 winning juvenile, and then 5-time Group 1 winning 3-year-old, resulting in him becoming the first horse ever to win 7 consecutive Group 1s in the Northern Hemisphere, breaking Millreef's 30-year-old record. So when that happened, the excitement levels about what this horse's kids were going to be able to do was off the charts. So the battle was for a huge amount of life-changing, empire-building cash, and
naturally things get a bit poisonous around that, as you'd expect them to. And I wonder, did we ever get a sense of what the 99 questions were? Did they get any answers to them? Are they published anywhere?
The United board said that they investigated, they weren't going to answer, and then very quickly afterwards the Glazers came in and that all disappeared.
Yeah, okay.
Now, like, this is only part one of Ferguson's career, where there was some talk around the time of him retiring.
Yeah.
You know, and then he comes back and wins, as you've said, 5 Premier League titles and a Champions League. Like, that force of power, when he wasn't distracted anymore, you know, reaches 2 other Champions League finals, as Joseph said. Like, the horse is this massive hinge point in the whole narrative. And then he has to go again, and he's like, oh, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And manages to work with the Glazers. Like, it's mad. the success level is off the charts. And I think the documentary does a reasonable job of, like, we didn't talk about the Aberdeen stuff where they're training in car parks and they're training in public parks, and like that team beats Real Madrid. You know, it's not nothing. They beat Real Madrid in a cup final.
Yeah, it's amazing. And maybe just to give a taste of kind of the type of thing we do get, we had 2 clips lined up here. So I'm going to go to the second one, which is him speaking. This is just after Aberdeen have won the Cup Winners' Cup, beating Real Madrid, and they've gone and beat Rangers 1-0 in kind of a drab, unconvincing Scottish Cup final. And here's kind of an example of the great archive that you do get in this piece, which is great for what it is.
Alex Ferguson, many congratulations winning the Scottish Cup for the 2nd year, but it was close.
The luckiest team in the world. They were a disgrace of performance.
Were you surprised by the way that Rangers played?
Miller McQuish won a cup for Aberdeen. Miller McQuish played Rangers themselves. A disgrace of performance. They're okay and winning cups doesn't matter. Their standards have been set long ago, and we're not going to accept that from any Aberdeen team. There's no way can we take any glory from it.
Can you give a reason for the disappointing performance then?
Couldn't you? If you could open up their minds, you'd be able to find out.
I can't understand why I did it. The only thing I can think of is that I wanted this to be the moment when we set ourselves as the best team Scotland ever had.
In all honesty, was it about being the best team in Scotland, or was it about hammering Rangers?
I think it was probably about beating Rangers. And this was my moment to say, right, you're going to get it. I wanted to put the knife in him.
I mean, I don't think any of us are too surprised to say here that revenge is a very important driving factor in his career, and you know, there's a nastiness and a ruthlessness that comes with that turns him into the great football manager that he is. But that is, you know, that's a troublesome character trait.
Yeah, it's like it's one as well that kind of like puts sort of reconciliation beyond the bounds of possibility. You find
it's kind of pointless, isn't it? Like, why would you reconcile with somebody when that's not the whole point of your existence? Is not to be friends with them. It's to use them as part of your success, and it's a transaction. You paid. He paid Keane. Keane took the money. Keane took the glory, and he used Ferguson to win trophies as well and build his reputation. Like, it's totally transactional, I think.
And let's not also forget that Ferguson, I'm sure, feels that it paid off in the end. He won.
Yeah.
The sort of chip in his shoulder that he would have had, and let's not forget Roy Keane absolutely had it as well.
And Keane would say it was worth it too.
Yeah, that precedes, as Joe mentioned, a huge wave of success for Manchester United that came post Roy Keane. That sparked possibly Alex Ferguson's greatest Manchester United team. And I think that every decision he's made he probably feels is vindicated.
Yeah, and you're talking about things being transactional there. What's really interesting is you see in the documentary him kind of bringing the club back to the top table, winning that first league title. But with the treble and everything else, he's kind of built that empire that then has been sold off to the Glazers. Like, there's another, like, that's kind of what I find frustrating is I think kind of there's that sort of heart of darkness and that sort of like kind of that kind of just metal underneath that you kind of want to see that you don't really see here. Like, I'd find Roy Keane speaking about Alex Ferguson at the roadshow back and forth, gosh, a lot more captivating than what you're getting here. And even little moments like this, we've got another clip here. This is 2013, so a good bit down the road from the initial Rock of Gibraltar controversy we're speaking about there. But he's talking to Jon Snow for Channel 4, and he brings up, he's on this sort of like, oh yeah, I'm here chatting to Jon Snow. Politics, oh yeah, I'd be left of Labour. Then John kind of has him kind of lulled into this nice flow. Then he starts bringing up a few topics that Ferguson's a bit less comfortable with. But we'll just play you this. This is him bringing up the BBC documentary that we mentioned before.
I didn't hold grudges. Eventually, they always come back in.
Well, that's true, but you held a very long grudge with the BBC because they talked about your son, and there was something to talk about with your son.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
he was somewhere in the furniture of the agencies that were dealing with the club, and that probably wasn't a good idea.
No, he was an agent for about a year and a half and gave up. That's it.
But that's the bit the BBC concentrated on.
They concentrated, and if you actually watch, it was a poor documentary of putting paper bags and all that on. I mean, it was horrible. So.
But you chucked them out for 7 years.
Yeah. Well, they never try to. They never apologise. That's your problem.
But it's another aspect of control, isn't it?
Yeah, but the important thing is you have to have some sort of strength of principle about dealing with that. I didn't enjoy it. I don't think it was correct. It wasn't accurate. And it wasn't honest.
And that's in a way why you like the Glazers, because they've left you with control. They don't really control the club, you do.
But they're supportive. That's the important thing. I think that you always appreciate people who support you. And they've been very good. And they're very, everything they've asked for, they've delivered.
Yeah, so he was happy to work with the Glazers. And, like, look, he made the Glazers thing work.
Well, yeah, like he did. I mean, the trophies speak for themselves. I'm always fascinated by people who are worried to admit that they do hold grudges, even though it's like patently obvious to everyone. It's like, I didn't hold a grudge against BBC. I mean, there was absolutely no like.
It's like, yeah, it's great. There's a great follow up on that where they continue talking about the Glazers, and it's like, you just tell me that you're a socialist and left of Labour. But you've also said that, like, I can't remember, you used the phrase, it's not cowboy capitalist, but essentially that the Glazers are like hyper capitalist. How do you marry them off? And he's kind of like, well, you know, that's business. He's like, yeah, and these loans against the club. He's like, people talk about the loans. That's business. People got to understand this. So, yeah, this is kind of like, I think it's a bit incredible just watching the piece. I think it's definitely worth kind of reading up a bit on the whole kind of Jason Ferguson dynamic. Even we've spoken about Roy Keane there. That kind of 25-minute crescendo of him sort of speaking about Man United to us at the Burgers Henry Theatre and why he wouldn't apologise to Alex Ferguson. That ends with him talking about kind of nepotism and sort of all these kind of involvements. So they're obviously, it's obviously a team. Like it's what Keane went to there at his most kind of vein putting out of his head.
Yeah.
Angry at the end of that segment. Like, so I don't know. I think, like, one, the documentary is good for what it is. Two, I'd recommend a bit of Googling around Jason Ferguson afterwards.
Cool. All right. Good stuff, Joseph. Thanks a million.